Today I'll be presenting on some aspects of our work which is looking at the influence of land use and climate change on the southernmost population of southern ground hornbills in Africa. The southern ground hornbill is classified as vulnerable globally. The species does have a tolerance of various land use types and can be seen foraging in farmland and plantations. But the species is disappearing from formerly occupied areas and is subsequently classed as endangered in South Africa. The species has a myriad of anthropogenic threats that vary based on local context, but we are interested in broader landscape scale threats that influence the species at a population level, specifically habitat loss, land use change, and climate change. Our main aim was to calculate the contemporary and the future niche under different climate change scenarios, and this will help us to plan for ecological connectivity in order to support the population at a national level. And this will subsequently help us understand how the species could potentially track their climatic niche. By incorporating personal observations and citizen science data from the last 20 years, we constructed both the contemporary and the predictive niche for the species within South Africa. We used the current bioclim datasets as well as the MIROC5 and the GIS future climate scenarios within the maximum entropy species distribution model toolbox in ArcGIS. The map on the left shows the broad extent of occurrence of the southern ground hornbill in red, and its sister species, the Abyssinian ground hornbill, in blue. And as you can see, the southern ground hornbill has quite an extensive distribution range throughout Africa. On the right, we have the southern ground hornbill range-wide niche. The maximum entropy species distribution model calculated the suitable areas and highlights the potential extensive overlap between the two ground hornbill species. On the left, we have the South African extent of occurrence, and on the right, the calculated contemporary niche, which indicates comparatively larger extents of suitable area based on climatic variables. For example, the extent of occurrence map only shows the distribution about halfway down the Eastern Cape, whereas the full niche, or the full contemporary niche, indicates that some parts of the Western Cape might be suitable for the species. We refined the output by only including values that are greater than 0.5. This essentially acts like a pass rate or an optimum threshold. So this 50% niche shows the utmost importance of the Kruger National Park and the associated private nature reserves, as well as the KwaZulu-Natal province as a whole. The total area coverage is about 103,000 square kilometers. However, just because the climate is right, it does not mean that the land use is suitable. We clipped the niche by the latest GeoTerra image land cover dataset for South Africa. And within this niche falls a variety of different land use classifications, many of which are not viable habitat for this species or for any other species for that matter. To illustrate, taking the upper 50% of the niche, we calculated the amount of inhospitable habitat. This consists of land use types such as urban, commercial, and built-up areas. The total area of inhospitable land use within KZN equated to about 7,000 square kilometers. The calculated suitable habitats, which consist of grassland, open woodland, and lightly wooded grassland, equates to just under 7,000 square kilometers. So essentially, for every square kilometer of natural habitat, we have a matched square kilometer of developed land. But also we have these marginal habitats, and that includes plantation forestry and a variety of different agricultural types that can support the species to a certain extent, but it is context dependent. And these land use types are market driven and also vary according to the seasons. By incorporating the climate change projections, we calculate the two extreme scenarios. So here we have the potential present-day existence. So this is the 50% niche, as I explained earlier on. Then we have the conservative future prediction, which is based on the AGIS data layer. And then a worst case, essentially going to hell in a handbag scenario based on the MIROC-5 dataset. And both scenarios indicate a niche reduction, but with the GIS prediction, the northernmost cluster will have more suitable areas remaining. And what does this mean at a provincial scale for KwaZulu-Natal? With either scenario, we are seeing huge range contractions. The red areas are inhospitable areas, and these were extracted from the contemporary niche, whereas the grey, which represents the GIS data, and black, based on the MIROC-5 dataset, indicates what we will essentially be left with. The red inhospitable areas are likely to increase in the future as the human population increases and will require more houses and industrial areas. But interestingly, the GIS, Conservative Future Prediction, calculates a smaller niche in KwaZulu-Natal, whereas the MIROC-5 data prediction, which was the worst case scenario, actually shows a slightly better scenario within KZN. Here we show the large contiguous optimum habitat patches that were extracted from the contemporary niche, and that's these patches in lime green. We consider patches greater than 100 square kilometers as the most optimum, and this is based on the estimated home range of a group of ground hornbills. We added, on top of the habitat, we added the protected area network, and that includes present, which is both formal and informally protected, and planned future protected areas. From this, we can highlight areas that are capable of supporting the species, but also that will be able to continue to do so in the future. So the next step is to do corridor mapping. Habitat corridors facilitate natural movement and will aid the species in tracking their climatic niche going forward. And to conclude, niche models elucidate the potential distribution of a species given the climatic conditions present. Here we highlight the issue of suitable habitat versus inhospitable land use types. We presented two future scenarios, a conservative estimate and a potential worst case scenario. A predictive niche in combination with data layers on the protected area network, key biodiversity areas and safe zones can be used to design an effective climate-sensitive reintroduction plan that considers genetic connectivity for southern ground hornbills. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully there will be some questions.